Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. This is a bit of a spontaneous video today, but I realised recently that I haven't spoken about Hoyas on my channel in quite a while, and I have got so much going on with my Hoyas at the moment and so many exciting things that I really want to share and I want to talk about. And the last time I counted, I think I'm right in saying I had about 65 species of Hoya in my collection, but I've rounded it up to, when I say 10, it's not really 10 because I've got varieties within species on this list, but kind of 10 of my favourite staple Hoyas. Ones that are doing really exciting things, ones that I find really easy, ones that I find really difficult, but I'm really looking forward to the potential of, all that sort of stuff. And I thought we could just geek out together and talk about Hoyas. So yes, that is what today's video is going to be. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And yeah, in classic fashion, I brought over quite a lot to talk about and to show you, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So I thought we could kick this video off with a Hoya that I always think of as being quite easy, but actually looking back at my journey with this Hoya, I would say it's actually been one of my, in some ways, most difficult. And it is the Hoya latifolia Sarawak. And don't get me wrong, this Hoya still to this day blows my mind, and I've had it for about 4 years now. If you've been on my channel for a while, then you might remember when I first got this one, which I think was from either Aroid Market or Aroid Asia. It was an imported plant. It came kind of like on one long stem with these 3 huge dinner plate leaves, and it blew my mind. I thought it was the most incredible thing. And then it just did nothing for ages and ages and ages. And I was fertilising correctly. I changed all the substrates, I changed the conditions, I raised the humidity, I raised the heat. I did all of the right things. And I was like, what am I not getting with this plant? And when I moved into my old flat, I was like, you know what? I was like, sometimes plants just need a little bit of a reset. So I chopped the whole thing up and I propagated it and I decided to restart it. And that was definitely the right choice for this plant. However, for about 6 months after that, it gave me, I think, 1 or 2 leaves and then absolutely nothing. So again, I've just kind of kept hold of this Hoya because of, I think mainly just because of the spectacle of it, because it is so magnificent, and because I know the potential of this plant. I could be so bad for this. Like, I'll know that a plant is capable of doing really amazing things. So I'm like, I'll keep it, even though it's not always making me happy at times. I don't have any regrets, however, in doing that though, because since I've moved in here, this one has actually started kicking out growth like no tomorrow. This here is a brand new leaf that is still, in fact, hardening off. It's got this teeny tiny little leaf just here. And as you can see, it's also got this big long section here, which really I do need to trellis, because if I don't want it to become very, very leggy, getting it onto a trellis is 100% the right decision. This is one that puts out these kind of quite long tendrils and does like to climb. So that's definitely, I say, on my to-do list. That is something I should do imminently in the next few days if possible, so that hopefully I can encourage some lovely growth. Because like I say, I've seen this plant in other people's collections and it's really, I mean, it is like nothing else, but I just feel like I haven't been able to quite strike the right balance with this plant yet in order to bring out the potential in it. But it is quite interesting that all of this has started happening since I've moved house, and I think it just goes to show, this might be such an obvious thing to say, but it just goes to kind of practically show how much of a difference a new environment can make. Because I was growing this one right up against my south-facing windows in my flat. It had good humidity. It had everything that you would have thought the plant needed to be happy. And on paper, it's kind of gone into similar conditions. However, this has just happened so quickly. So yeah, I feel like whatever the subtle change was that this environment is now offering, it's obviously doing great things for the plant. So it's now one that I am back feeling really excited about, and I just cannot wait to see what it does for me. It has bloomed for me before. In fact, it went through a weird phase of blooming like all the time. And I was like, is this just stress? Is the plant just not happy and it's just kicking out flowers to try and kind of save itself? But its blooms are beautiful. If I can find a picture, I'll put them on the screen so that you can see, but they're pink and they're just vibrant and like no other Hoya that I have seen bloom before. It's just so pretty. So yeah, my hope for this plant now, once it's trellised, is to get loads of lovely foliage hopefully going, and then who knows, maybe some healthy flowering as well. That would be my goal. But yeah, I thought I would put it on this list because it is 100% a staple Hoya in my collection. I know a lot of you guys have said before, if you think of me, this is the plant that you think of, because it has been kind of like the apple of my eye over the years in various ways, even when it hasn't been doing the best. So yeah, I just can't wait to grow it. And if any of you are growing this one, let me know your tips for it, because although things are starting to go right, I'm sure there's more I could be doing. It's a very low maintenance one. But yeah, let me know what you're doing right. It's funny actually, because sometimes I feel like when I talk about struggle plants, I often insinuate that they're plants that are like doing really badly, like they're on death's door or whatever. And this one has never been on death's door. It's never been bad. But I think sometimes when you are doing lots and not bringing out the potential in the plant, that for me, if it's been years and years and years, can be therefore a struggle plant, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm so excited about this one now, and I'll keep you updated. Right now, I don't feel like I'm there in regards to being able to tell you exactly what to do. But hopefully I'll be able to come back to you on that soon, because it's just one that is so cool and I'm so excited about. And then this next Hoya is one that I do have a couple of different varieties of, so I will take you through both of them, but it's another one that has not been a walk in the park for me, and it's the Hoya Bella. And I would say that this Hoya is not just a staple within my Hoya collection, it's probably a staple within my entire plant collection. I absolutely love it. I love the texture of it. I just think it is the most beautiful, beautiful plant. And it is in some ways a very hardy plant. Like if you look at its leaves, it's very, typical Hoya. It's very robust, it's very waxy. It is, however, in my experience, an absolute nightmare when it comes to mealybugs. I find this one so susceptible. I've had a few different Hoya Bella plants over the years, and every single time I've had one, it has got mealybugs at one point or another. And I think because its foliage is so kind of dense and bushy, when you get one or two mealybugs, you have to treat them immediately or it is all downhill from there. And I have in fact lost a Hoya Bella to mealybugs in the past because I just didn't treat it quick enough. And in fact, the reason that this one is not in my main kind of planty space at the moment, I've got this over in the window in the living room, is because it's still technically in isolation. I haven't seen a mealybug on it for a good few months now, but I'm like, I just want to make sure it is fully clear before I dare put it around any other plants, because as I say, it does just seem to attract them. But as you can see with this one, it has got so many blooms that are ready to pop. It's got, I want to say about 9 or 10 at the moment, and this is 100% the Hoya out of all of the Hoyas in my collection that blooms the most, and its blooms are so pretty. They're not kind of spherical in clusters in the same way as lots of other Hoyas are. They're more kind of downward facing. So for that reason, I really like having this plant hanging up high. And then when I look up at it, I can just see all its blooms. I think it is just so lovely. But yeah, this is another one that I've grown in many different substrates over the years, and right now I'm back to growing it in a very chunky soil mix. I've said it before, but Hoyas are epiphytic plants, which just means in their natural habitat, they're not terrestrial, they don't grow from the ground, they typically grow attached to other trees, shrubs, rocks, you name it. So typically a very chunky, not particularly, not a dense soil mix is going to be best for them. So this is lots of cocoa coir, sphagnum moss, orchid bark, and that seems to be keeping this plant fairly happy. It could probably actually do with a pot upgrade. I find its roots do spread quite quickly when you give it more space, and I gave it more space about maybe 4 or 5 months ago now. So yeah, I do think I should probably size it up a little bit because it is so thirsty right now and it's drying out so quickly. But the funny thing is, the other type of Hoya Bella that I've currently got in my collection is the Albo Marginata, which is one of the variegated varieties. This one, as you can see, has got lots of outer variegation, particularly this strand, which is so pretty. And this one I'm growing in semi-hydro, and this one has got on brilliantly like this. And again, over my time of growing this plant, there have been moments where it's been a little bit of a struggle. Again, at one point it did get mealybugs. Touch wood, it is back on the straight and narrow now, and actually again since I've moved here it does seem to be kicking out loads of lovely growth. But I'm a little bit wary of changing up the substrate I've got it in now just because I found a good balance. But it is interesting that those two types of plants are obviously, they're both Hoya Bellas, one's variegated and one's not, that's the only difference between them, but one seems much happier in one substrate than the other. I don't quite know why that is. I can only put it down to, again, environmental factors and the fact that maybe I'm growing this one in this space and that one in that space, and it all comes down to trial and error with your plants at the end of the day. And I think it just goes to show that there is no one set rule for any plant. So yeah, my hope would be at some point that this one could maybe get to the stage that the other one is. It is still quite small and sparse. It's definitely slower to grow in my experience as well, as variegated plants often are, because obviously they don't contain as much chlorophyll. But this little strand here with this beautiful variegation is just so gorgeous. I love it so much. I love the delicate structure of the Hoya Bella, and that accompanied with the variegation for me is just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So yes, I wouldn't say this is as much of a staple. I think if I had to choose between them, I would just go straight Hoya Bella, no variegation. I think it would be a tricky one. But it's a Hoya that I just think you need to keep a little bit of an eye on, more so than some of the others I'm going to show you on this list. Like Hoya as a genus, a lot of the time is very well known for being one that you can almost just kind of forget about. And with a lot of these ones, they are, but yeah, these ones for some reason do require just a little bit more care, the Hoya Bella. Not sure why, but they do. This one, on the other hand, is completely the opposite. This is the Hoya gracilis, and I've actually got two Hoya gracilis in my collection because it is the most adaptable and easy to care for Hoya. Honestly, I really don't do much to this plant. I water it maybe once every 3 weeks. I've got one in a really low light spot in my living room, and I've watered that once since I moved in here, and that was over 2 months ago now, and it seems perfectly happy. This one is, again, quite slow to grow, but it is, I mean, I say that, it is giving me growth. Like, you can see a little bit of new growth. Oh, if the camera will focus, I might just put some clips in. But yeah, a little bit of new growth coming in just there. And the growth it does give is really glossy and beautiful. I must say, though, the Hoya gracilis, as I say, I have got two, and neither of them have ever bloomed for me. And I don't think that is just down to the conditions I'm growing this plant in, because I've grown them in lots of different conditions over the years of me owning them. Maybe it's just one that's not as prone to flowering. I don't know. But that being said, the structure of this plant, as you can probably tell, it does work very well as a hanging plant. It does grow beautifully in this way, whereas other plants, for example, the Hoya latifolia Sarawak, the big-leafed one that I first showed you, that one is one that needs a trellis. This one will be perfectly happy growing like this. And besides the fact that I do just love the look of the foliage, I love that it's a little bit splashy, I love how, as I say, how glossy it is. I've said before, it is really nice when you've got, I mean, not even a big plant collection, but a plant collection, to have 1 or 2 plants that you just don't need to worry about. And honestly, for me, this is potentially number 1 on that list. As I say, I do so little to keep this plant happy. And everything it does for me is kind of just like a gift, because I feel like I haven't earned that a lot of the time. It's just like, it is just so easy. I would say the one thing that you really have to watch out for this, with this one, is overwatering, because it is such a drought tolerant Hoya. I would say if you are someone that is prone to just loving your plants maybe a little little bit too much at times, wait for this one to almost completely dry out before you water it again. As I've already said, there's one in my living room that I haven't watered, or I've watered once in 2.5 months. So yeah, it will typically let you know when it's ready for a drink. You do just get to know your plants when you've had them for a while, but this one I just feel its leaves, and when they don't feel quite so robust, when I can kind of bend them a little bit more without worrying about them like snapping, that's when I typically go in and water this one again. But yeah, it's just gorgeous, and it's one that I honestly could not recommend highly enough. And then another one that I've got 2 variants within the species, however, they're very similar in a lot of ways, is the HOYA calistophylla. And I've spoken about this one before because it just has the most amazing leaves. I think its leaves are just beautiful. They're very reptilian, but also very, like, I don't know, very typically gorgeous. Sometimes you see reptilian Hoyas, and in fact I've got one I'm going to show you in a minute that is so weird that I know it wouldn't be for everyone, but this is just so stunning. So this is the standard HOYA calistophylla, and the other one I've got is the HOYA calistophylla black cat, and I got this one after the standard calistophylla, and I just put them next to each other so that you can see the difference. The only difference really in my experience is, and obviously I have got 2 fairly juvenile plants, but the black cat just seems to be much shinier and waxier compared to the standard calistophylla. It's almost more like fabricy in some ways, and the black cat is also just more dramatic. Like its veination is much more kind of inky and spread, and it's darker. And if I had to choose just one, right now, personally, I would say my staple is the calistophylla black cat. I wasn't expecting to love this Hoya as much as I do, and in the short time that I've had it, I think it's probably been about 5 months now, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that long. In the time that I've had it, it has just been such a rewarding plant for me to grow. I'm growing it in a no drainage system, so I've got semi-hydro at the bottom where I'll typically create a little reservoir when it's ready for water, and then I've just got a chunky soil mix that feeds up through the rest of it. And this plant again is giving me beautiful, beautiful, beautiful growth. This leaf here, the extra shiny one, that is a new leaf, and in fact, this big shiny one just here is also a fairly new leaf. It hasn't bloomed for me yet. In fact, neither has the standard calistophylla, neither have ever bloomed for me. So I will find a picture and I'll put that on the screen so you can see what its blooms look like. But I just love this one. It feels like a very precious plant, and one that I don't know, like sometimes you just have these little gems within your plant collection, and this for me is one. I'm always checking on it. It's not the fastest to grow, but when it does give you growth, as I say, there is nothing like it. It's just so rewarding. Similarly to the way as well that I always bang on about anthuriums, how their new growth comes in, Hoyas are very, very similar. Typically the leaves will start, and in fact I've got an example here because my standard calistophylla is giving me a new leaf. Typically the leaves will come in very, very small, and they will just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and kind of harden off as they go. And I find watching the process of them grow in that way just so fascinating. I just love it. So yeah, it is a type of Hoya that I wouldn't be without, and if I was rebuilding my collection from scratch, I feel like I would get this one quite quickly. It's also one that is, or has been for me, very, very easy to care for. I've grown the standard calistophylla, which I have had longer. I've grown that one in many different conditions. It's very resilient in regards to what it can take. It's very drought tolerant, very adaptable when it comes to lighting, no specific humidity requirements in my experience. My camera battery just died mid-Hoya rant, so I'm not quite sure where that got to, but I think I was just raving about how wonderful the Hoya calistophylla is. Calistophylla black cat is this one, as I say. If I had to choose, this is the variant within species that I would personally go for, but it's just a fantastic beginner plant. It's just great. I've lost my train of thought now. That's probably a good thing because I think I've said enough. But yes, I recommend. Oh, and then let's do this little one. So I've only got one of these, no variety within species with this one, but this is one that I wasn't even aware of until last year, and I was very kindly sent this one in an import order. And it has recently given me some new growth, and honestly, I cannot even express how excited I am about it. But it is the HOYA Red Tendon, the HOYA SP Red Tendon. Hang on, I'm sure it's got a bigger name than that actually. HOYA something Red Tendon. I'll put the name on the screen. But it might not look like much just looking at it there, but it's the undersides of the leaves. Oh, and in fact, I'm a bit nervous about lifting this one up because these are the new leaves. But look at that beautiful red vein that runs all the way underneath. I'll put some clips in because I feel like I'm just going to end up pouring soil all over myself. But how gorgeous is that? And the new two leaves it's just given me are the biggest yet. They are still hardening off and sizing up, so they could be even bigger, but they are so splashy as well. And it's a Hoya that I am just so excited about. I'm growing it in pretty much an identical way to the Calistophylla Black Cat that I just showed you as well. Semi-hydro on the bottom, a really chunky soil mix on top. And again, I'm finding that a really good way of doing things. And just looking at the structure of this Hoya, I do suspect it is one that is going to benefit from a trellis. I don't think it's going to be like the Gracilis. I don't think it's going to turn into a trailing plant. But I don't think we're quite there yet. If it starts giving me what looks like not just foliage, the start of kind of like a branchy, tendrily stem, then I will absolutely introduce a trellis. And I kind of hope that's the case quite soon, because often when that starts to happen, that's when things really get going and you can really start bringing out amazing things in your Hoyas. And this is the thing as well, and I've been guilty of this so many times myself. If you do see, and we'll move on to this in a minute because I've got a great example of this next to me. If you do see a Hoya that is kind of starting to put out a tendril that looks like it's looking for something to climb, give it something quick because it's going to give you way more foliage that way. And in fact, let's move on to that one. So yeah, just appreciation for the Hoya SP Red Tendon. It's so gorgeous and I feel so lucky to own this plant because I know it's not one that's particularly accessible over here in the UK yet. So yeah, I'm so excited to see what it does. No idea about its blooms, but I will keep you updated. But the one that I was saying is very ready to be on a trellis is the Hoya Australis. And this is the one I would always get questions from you guys about. It used to trail off my cabinet when I was living back at the flat, and I was always getting messages being like, what is that Hoya? And since I've moved here, as you can see, it's putting out a new section of growth, which is really beautiful. However, that bit there is just absolutely desperate to be gripping onto something, and I fear if I don't get it onto a trellis soon, all of the little leaves that it's starting to give me here will either fall off or it will just become very leggy, very dense and not give me much foliage. And sometimes if you do get those big long sections of stem with no foliage, it can be then quite hard to fill them back in. Like sometimes the plant will never give you leaves in those spots. So yeah, again, this is something I should really be doing now. I feel like I need to make myself a to-do list after this video and put some time aside this bank holiday weekend to just get on and do things. But when I first got this plant, it actually was on a trellis, and I think that explains why it's got such significant growth here. It was on a trellis very similar to the Hoya Australis Lisa, which is the variegated variety of this plant, or one of the variegated varieties, should I say. And the reason that I took it off the trellis is because the plant had mealybugs, and I didn't notice this when I first got the plant. I think it was within a few weeks to a month of me first owning it that I started noticing them, and they'd got all into the gap between the main stem and the trellis, and I tried to treat the plant again and again and again, and eventually I was like, if I actually want to be thorough here, I'm going to need to get it off the trellis. And once I'd got it off the trellis and I'd kind of left it for a few months to make sure that it was completely pest free, once I'd done that, I was like, I actually really like the look of it like this, and I like the fact that I can kind of train it a little bit. And I do find that sometimes Hoya trellises can be a bit bog standard and a little bit boring, and I don't know, even this one here, to be honest, this plant has grown beautifully for me, but I'm like, it's just another round trellis. I don't know, it looks a bit too, I want to say like posed for me. I don't like plants to look like they've been too, I don't know, man-made. There's something about that feels man-made, and I think that's why I don't like it. But one thing I have seen people do before that I'm very keen to try, in fact, I think this was on either Instagram or Pinterest or something a while ago. Someone had put a length of like string or rope hanging across the room, and then they trained the Hoya to kind of go round that, and it looked amazing. So I would love to do that with this type of plant. And in fact, I'm actually very tempted to get the Hoya australis lisa, the variegated variety, off its trellis and kind of combine the two. Because as you can see, this one has got a very similar leaf structure and shape, but it has got these gorgeous, gorgeous variegated leaves. And if you look at the top here, you can see the growth is coming in very pinky, and then it's kind of fading to this gorgeous marble variegation. I say marble variegation, actually this is not marble variegation, it just feels like what I think of when I think of a marble. It's actually more, I would say it actually fits more into the block variegation category because it is really quite defined if you look at it. But yeah, as you can see, this one is massively growing off its trellis, and I could either chop and propagate this plant, but thinking about it, I think I would quite like to maybe try the idea that I said of combining the two. And typically I don't combine plants. I can get a little bit freaked out by that. I don't know why. There's just something in my brain that goes, oh no, you should keep them separate. But bearing in mind they both grow in very similar ways, they both grow in similar substrates. Again, I haven't got these ones in no drainage, but I've got them in just like a very, very chunky, show you, a very chunky soil mix, again with lots of coco coir, tree fern fibre, that's the word I was looking for. Tree fern fibre for Hoyas is absolutely amazing. I have not ever found a Hoya that won't appreciate some tree fern fibre, just because it offers such good aeration, the roots are able to really spread, it doesn't hold too much moisture, but at the same time it gives them enough that they're able to kind of, it basically just replicates their natural way of growing really well. So yeah, that's how I'm growing both of these currently. This one, however, I'm trying to think, has it bloomed for me? It must have done, because I've had this plant a while, but it's got the most insane peduncles, which are these little points here. And if you are a Hoya person, you'll know never to chop a peduncle, because the plant will continue to flower from that same point every single time. Sometimes with houseplants, if they have flowered, people will be like, chop them back. Don't do that with Hoyas, because if you want it to bloom again, as I say, it reuses its peduncles. So I'm hoping for some lovely flowers soon. We are coming into the season where I believe this one has bloomed for me before. I'm trying to think if it's the non-variegated type that's bloomed. The peduncles would suggest that it has. But if I had to choose between these two, oh, it's tricky, but I think I would probably say the australis lisa, just because the variegation on the leaves is so gorgeous. It's just so pretty. I love the colour change. I love the sunsettiness of it. But I do love both of them. I really do. So maybe if I combine them into one, does that mean that that could be my staple plant? I don't know. But yeah, it's just such a lovely one. And again, in my experience, very easy to grow. I first got cuttings of the australis lisa, I think about probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And it was one of the first Hoyas that I propagated. I just found some cuttings on Etsy. It propped really quickly, really easily. And there's loads of different ways that you can propagate Hoyas, and I previously would always go with sphagnum moss, and yes, that is incredibly effective. However, when Hoyas root into sphagnum moss, because they've got quite fine spindly roots a lot of the time, it can be really hard to take them out of the moss to then transfer them to their substrate, and particularly if you're moving them to something like semi-hydro, where it is highly recommended to get like as much of the organic substrate off the roots as you possibly can. It makes it such a nightmare. So nowadays I will either go with water, or I will just pot them straight into soil. And With a lot of types of plants, soil propagation is not the way forward, but typically for succulents and semi-succulents, not always, but most of the time, soil propagation is very easy, and that is what I do most of the time for my Hoyas nowadays. However, that is incredibly far away. Go, bring them over. One that I do still prop in water most of the time is the Hoya linearis, and I love the Hoya linearis. I love it so much. And this one I'm actually propagating in one of Ross's little roster pots that he made. But this one's been propagating, I think, probably for about 4 or 5 weeks now, and as you can see, it's already got some really brilliant roots on it. And I absolutely probably could propagate this one in soil, but the only reason I don't is just because this is a little bit of a different Hoya. As you can tell, it's a little bit more delicate, it's not quite as waxy, and I just feel safer doing it this way, and it always works. I touch wood. I don't think I've ever had a time where it hasn't worked this way. But yeah, my big Hoya linearis here, this one I've got to say is technically a cheat plant. So I had one that looked very similar, and I went away last year and I got back and it had dried out so much. I'd forgotten to water it before I went, and I think because it was due for a pot upgrade, it had so much roots in the pot, it guzzled the water that was in there, dried out very quickly, and loads of the strands were just dead when I got back. And I managed to save about 4 or 5 strands of it, and I had it when I first moved in here, and it was growing well. And then if you're watching Alan Titchmarsh's Gardening Club on ITV at the moment, there is a section in an upcoming episode where I talk about plants that you can propagate and kind of rehab, and I used that one as an example, and I did chop it up, and in fact, that is what you can see here, and you're kind of seeing into the future a little bit because you can see that this one obviously has rooted. But I was then like, I really miss my Hoya linearis. I really miss it. And I was at a garden centre recently, I think about, when did we film that? 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, something like that. And yeah, I saw that they had one reduced, and I was like, I'm just going to do it because it is a plant that makes me so happy. I can totally pot these rooted cuttings up with this plant and just fill the plant out even more. Why would I not do that, seeing as I love the plant so much? So yeah, I'm very happy to have a lovely full one back in my collection because this one is just gorgeous, and it's velvety soft. Oh, and I've also just seen something that's really quite exciting. Oh, and that is a little peduncle on this one. If the camera will focus, there we go. Do you see that? So the Hoya linearis, oh, in fact, there's loads of them. Oh my God. Oh my goodness, there's loads of peduncles. The Hoya linearis has only flowered for me a few times in my time of owning this plant over the years. And typically when it does flower, it is very short-lived. It will kind of flower for a week intensely, it will have loads of blooms, and then you won't see any again for kind of 8-9 months. So the fact that there are signs is very exciting. I hadn't noticed that. But yeah, I would say a slightly thirstier Hoya than some of the others, but again, I would say it is a pretty good beginner plant. I propagated this one, again, in water, as quite an early Hoya propping plant in my collection. And got on really well with it before I forgot about it. So yeah, another one that I would highly recommend. And then I had to include this one on the list because this is probably my weirdest Hoya. It is so bizarre, but I love it so much. And it is my Hoya undulata red. And this has got to be such a Marmite plant. Some people will look at this and they'll go, oh my God, why would you want to grow that? It looks gross, it looks scaly, it looks prehistoric. And then I think other people will be like, oh, that looks really awesome. And when I first got this type of plant, it was not the plant for me at all. I was very kindly sent it in, actually, in fact, I think the same import order that I was sent the Hoya latifolia Sarawak, which was probably a good more than 2 years ago, a good 3, maybe even 4 years ago now. It was quite a while ago. And I remember unboxing this one and being like, oh, that's nice. Being like, what the hell is this weird plant? And then as it started to grow, I just fell in love with it. And I was like, it's so cool, and it got me into weird and wonderful Hoyas, and I've kind of never looked back. I've now embraced the weirdness in a lot of my plants in a way that maybe I wouldn't have done if I hadn't formed a relationship with this type of plant, as weird as that sounds. But very, very sadly, I did actually lose my original one. It grew beautifully for me for a couple of years, and when I moved into my old flat, again, just something about the environmental shift, that plant just wasn't happy and I could not get it to bounce back. Again, I believe it had mealybugs at one point as well. And so yeah, it gave up. And then I received this one, getting on probably for about a year ago now, and it has been very slow to grow. But again, since I've moved house, since I've moved to my new environment, this is a new leaf that it's given me, and I can see that it is starting to, like, it's very, very small at the top there, but there is the start of some new leaves there as well. So hopefully this is the start of the plant doing wonderful, wonderful things for me, because it's such a cool one. My aim with this plant is to get it to flower, because again, this one has never flowered for me, and I have a feeling, or actually maybe I'm thinking of one of my other weird Hoyas. I was going to say, I have a feeling maybe its blooms are hairy, but I think I might be thinking of the Hoya Caudata Sumatra, which is another very weird and wonderful one that I've shown you before. But yeah, just a quick mention to this one because it's so cool. And then this is one that, again, I've got a couple of different varieties of, and I actually don't know currently which one of these would be my staple plant. I kind of feel like they're both it. I don't know which one I choose. It is the Hoya Wyetia, and I've got the standard green Wyetia, and I've got, I would say Wyetia, I actually think it's Wyetii, and then I've got the variegated Hoya Wyetii. And I think both are just amazing. The thing I love about this one is the form of it. Like, its leaves are so long and almost like a string of bananas. They are just so beautiful. And again, the Wyetii is one that I have grown from cuttings and I've had in my collection for years and years and years. It is one that I have been affected by mealybugs with, should I say, before. However, it's one that I also have found so easy to treat. I know I was saying earlier about the Hoya Bella and how that one is just like a magnet for mealybugs. This one, when I found them, I've got to say, it wasn't just one or two. There were like lots of little ones right at the base of the plant, and I was like, oh my God, is this the beginning of the end? However, I treated the plant and it bounced back really, really quickly, and that was, I'm trying to think, maybe like 7 or 8 months ago now. In fact, no, I completely lied. It was probably about a year ago because it was just before I filmed my houseplant tour video last year. And yeah, I haven't seen any more since then. So yeah, it's a very hardy, very resilient plant. It's kind of in the Hoya gracilis category in the sense that it just kind of grows and gets on with things, doesn't require a huge amount of care, is fantastic for beginners. But then again, everything I say about the standard Wyetii, I can also say about the variegated variety, and just look at that, particularly at the moment because we're having such gorgeous weather here in the UK. Like, we're just coming into spring and the sun is shining and it's beautiful. This one is sun stressing amazingly. And the sun stress is kind of like that beautiful peachy colour, and not all Hoyas sun stress as beautifully as this one. I think because this one is variegated, like, I love how it comes in pinky peachy and then fades to almost kind of like a creamy colour. It's not quite yellow. But yeah, again, this is just such an easy plant for me to grow, and I, over the years, oh my God, have neglected this plant so much. And I'm not proud in saying that, but you know how there's some plants that you just kind of know they'll be fine. I have gone like months without watering this plant before, and I remember, in fact, when I was growing it on a trellis when I was back at the flat, I had it in one of my window boxes in the bedroom, and I said it before, but for some reason I found the bedroom quite difficult sometimes to keep on top of with when it came to plant care, just because like, I don't know, it wasn't my primary space. A lot of my low maintenance plants were in there. And I went over to the window box one day and I felt its soil and it was like crumbly, bone dry, and all of the leaves were kind of curled, and I was like, oh no, I think I've killed it. And I watered it through, and a few days later it was looking as beautiful as it had done probably 3 months ago when I'd last watered it. So yeah, it's incredibly resilient, and if you were looking for something a little bit more unusual, Hoya YSEA tricolour, this is the variegated variety, I would say it's just like the best. Like now I'm saying I recommend all these plants. I'm so sorry, I'm not meaning to influence, but go on, get it. It's such a good plant. It's again one that I propagated very early on when I didn't know a lot about houseplants and I was just figuring things out, and yeah, it's still to this day doing really well. Not the quickest grower. Well, like actually at the moment it's putting out a lot of growth, but that's because it's getting such good light. Not the quickest grower unless you are growing it in really, really bright lighting conditions. And I must say, with pretty much all of my Hoyas, they are very adaptable lighting wise, but most of them do prefer either bright and direct light or actually some full sun. And that's often how you get them to firstly sun stress, but really grow quite quickly. Yeah, this one's in kind of like a terracotta-y pot. It's very porous, the material. I don't think this is actually terracotta. I think it's just the style of the pot, but it does draw quite a lot of moisture from the soil. So I water this one on average at the moment about twice a week. And that might seem like a lot for a Hoya, but it is very happy. So I love them both. I really, really do. And I'd say it flip-flops with which one is my favourite, but right now, I think, again, it has to go to the YSEA tricolour. Oh, and then finally, as I say, I had so many more I could have talked you through, but I had to include this one. This is my Hoya Crimson Princess, just because, again, look at that sun stress. Isn't that beautiful? It's like a gorgeous pastel pink right now, and it's just making me so happy. It's such a positive, beautiful, like picturesque plant. And I've had so many questions before about the Crimson Princess and the Crimson Queen, both of which are very similar types of Hoya, which I believe are just a variegated variety of the Hoya carnosa. And the only difference, I think, the only difference is that the Crimson Princess typically has its variegation on the inside of the leaves, and the Crimson Queen has its variegation on the outside of the leaves. And in fact, I've got the Crimson, let me get it, I've got the Crimson Queen as well. Yeah, so the section I've got of this one actually isn't particularly variegated, but you can kind of see what I mean. This one's got its variegation on the outer edges of the leaves with the green in the middle, whereas this one is the opposite. So you can kind of see the variety within them there, because I know some people over the years have said, oh, they're the same plant, why are you calling them by different names? And I believe that is why. But yeah, again, this is a very easy one. It does require, in my experience, more lighting than a lot of other types of Hoya, even variegated Hoya. I know I was just saying about the YSEA tricolour and how that one is very adaptable. This one's adaptable. However, when I was at the flat, there were times where I was growing this kind of like above my window, so it wasn't getting much natural light, definitely no direct light at all, and it grew so slowly, like I'd be lucky if I got a leaf every 4 or 5 months. And again, moved here, put it on that table just behind me there, and it has been growing like a weed. Most of what you see here, the pink growth, most of that is from the last couple of months. So yeah, it's one I'm really excited about. Again, I could get it onto a trellis, but I don't think it's one that needs to be on a trellis. It does seem to be giving me really lovely foliage without being on a trellis. So I think I will just continue to let it grow as is for the time being. Maybe take some cuttings and play about with some different ways of growing it. But mainly, I think the aim is to create a lovely big hanging trailing plant. But yeah. God, I just love Hoyas, I really do. And I go through, I don't want to say phases with them. I go through intense phases of being utterly obsessed with them and buying cuttings and not being able to stop talking about them. And then it's not like the obsession fades, but I think the intense desire to buy more just kind of dwindles and I focus on other things, and then my Hoyas start doing things and I realise again just how much I love them and just want to make videos like this and talk about them all the time. So yeah, those right now I would say are the staples in my collection. Let me know what some of yours are, comment them down below because I would absolutely love to know. Let me know what some of your wish list Hoyas are as well because I have got such a packed wish list of this type of plant. But yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely day. I hope you have a lovely long weekend if you're in the UK. Happy Easter. And yes, I will see you soon. How do I usually finish my videos? Ah yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video!
Stay sexy, plant lovers.